Welcome to the Speaker Meeting, a space where we break the silence one story at a time. Every episode, you'll hear from someone who's been there, through the struggle of addiction, the turning point into recovery, and the journey after. Because no matter where you are, you're not alone. Recovery is possible, and hope is real. My hope is that by sharing these stories, you'll believe it to be true. My name is Chibi. My sobriety date is April 5th, 2024, and this is the Speaker Meeting.
My name is Chris Crouch. I'm an addict, and my sobriety date is January 28th, 1995.
Ooh, well, thanks for being here, Chris. I appreciate you coming in to share your story with us.
Thanks for asking me.
When you got here, I asked you to randomly pick a tarot deck and then randomly pick a tarot card. We have a tradition on this podcast where the guest picks a card, and we kind of use it as a way to ground the conversation and not in the kind of divination way, but more of an insightful, almost icebreaker of sorts. And the card that you picked was the Two of Pentacles, which is a card about balance, about juggling responsibilities, about staying steady through change, and learning how to manage life without losing yourself in the chaos. In recovery, it's a reminder that life doesn't stop being full, but we can learn to move with it instead of against it. And I'm curious, what has finding balance looked like for you in recovery, especially when, things are more maybe overwhelming and unpredictable?
Well, I think that it's important to really understand that nothing is forever, and to try to enjoy the moment, because my sobriety has turned into a lot of enjoyable things. And so I have to remember that everything that I am doing, I am choosing to do. And so if I've chosen to do it, then I really need to make sure that I'm enjoying it. Mm-hmm. And it's important to understand that, even when things get tense and busy, that I will be fine. I'll be okay. Mm-hmm. Even a little bit of stress and a little bit of tiredness is not going to it's not going to affect me.
I love that these days, it sounds like a little bit of stress and a little bit of tiredness is kind of the worst of it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's take it back then. What was your relationship like with substances or addictive behavior, like in the beginning, and how did that progress over time?
Well, I am always an addict, and currently I have been able to really understand all of my addictions. And even though the first addiction that I had was drugs and alcohol, and that I put that down, over 30 years ago, but that doesn't mean that I was fixed when I did that. And because I was so young, there was a lot of things I still, I guess, needed to do and to go through. And one of them is, that I didn't understand that I could switch my addictions. And I have had more addictions that were non-substance, except for maybe food, which is a substance. Yeah. But I've had them nonetheless, and that I was using them the same way as I was using drugs and alcohol, and just changing the way I feel.
Mm-hmm. You said you got sober when you were pretty young. How old were you when
I first came in? I came in at 23 in 1993.
Okay.
And 18 months later, I actually had one toke on a joint, and I started my time over at that point. But I've been consistently going to program for more than 30 years.
Okay.
And I've been off of alcohol since 1993.
Wow. So 23 is pretty young to kind of realize like, hey, maybe this is a problem. What was kind of like what was going on in your life at that point that
I was going to die?
Okay. To put it mildly.
Yep. It was really close, and I knew it. And I said to myself, I'm either going to have to stop this or I will die.
Mm-hmm. And this was, you were in New York at the time, right? So New York, late 80s, early 90s.
Yep. Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Good times. Not such a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was during the period of the AIDS epidemic. And so, the first bombing of the trade towers, New York was just beginning to change and gentrify in Manhattan, so I did get to see that change.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're an addict first and lifelong, right? And your addiction kind of morphed. So after you put down the, let's just call them mind altering substances, as it were, drugs and alcohol, what was like, what happened next and how long did it take you to realize like, oh, wait a second, I may have changed the object, but I haven't actually changed.
Right. I didn't change the behavior. But I did pick up sex right away. I was young. And, I mean, because of AIDS, I was scared of it. So, I mean, I did have a lot of sex, but I had safe sex, but I had a lot of it and it was compulsive. And also my eating disorder. I've been bulimic for a long time and, my binge eating took off, it was the, nights of just eating a lot and throwing it up and, repeating that behavior, I mean, in a way it was like, I was doing it because I was really chasing that, something to make me feel differently. Not that it was making me feel better. I was throwing up.
Not a pleasant feeling.
No. At first, I felt better, but then I ultimately was self-destructing.
It's interesting that the card that popped up was a card about balance. And, here you're talking about bulimia, which is the exact opposite of that, right?
Right.
An entire overindulgence followed by an entire period of just nothing, right?
Right.
Was there a moment there where you realized, like, what was the moment where you realized, oh, I'm still doing the same behaviors, right? And I still need help.
About year 25. I'm a slow learner. I really need to. I say that in jokingly, but it is true. It is true. Like after substances, after like sex, food, money, spending, debting. It became about addiction to anger. And then it was, it really is. Then I was starting to realize that there is something else going on underneath all of this. And even through all the therapy and everything, I really wasn't really identifying it. And it was about, I think about between around 22, 23 years where I had that moment where I realized that I had subconsciously felt unlovable, and that was really core. That was so core to my everything that I was doing, that I needed to make myself feel better. In a way, I was like using things to like with fear, but still trying to love myself in some way.
I want to touch on that aspect of feeling unlovable. But first, can we take it back before year 23? What was your recovery practice like at the time? Because, I mean, clearly it kept you off drugs and alcohol, but something was missing to that wasn't getting you to that realization yet.
I was not having a real commitment to the program that I had chosen to do. I had a surface kind of level of like, okay, I'm not drinking today, so I must be sober.
Okay,
I must be sober minded, and I really look back on it now, and I was like, that's okay, and that worked for me, and I'm glad that I was off of substances, off of drugs and alcohol, but I don't know why I really did not click on earlier that I was really having a mental illness problem.
Yeah. Talk more about that notion of surface level program work, because I'm sure there's somebody maybe listening to this that's like, I'm going to meetings, I have a sponsor, and I still feel rage all the time. I still feel discontent all the time. I'm not drinking or using, but something isn't working, right?
Well, that line in the 12-step program where it says half measures of LS nothing, and half-assing it is not, it's not what I would really suggest. I do think there is, I believe there is a powerful message in every step. And I know a lot of people say higher power. I do not say like a higher power as far as a deity. I do think that the power that has been greater than myself has been the collective knowledge of people through the ages, and just really being able to like get down deeper into understanding who I am, who Chris is, and also too, I had mental illnesses that I had to heal from before I could do that. And I've had quite a few therapists. I've been on different medications through the whole time. And I tell people that every new medication that I was on, I learned something about myself. So I'm not going to say I blame myself for not learning. I joke about, I'm a slow learner, but actually what it was is I had a lot to heal from. I had a lot of healing to do. And, one of the first early things in my sobriety was a horrible depression. For 5 to 8 years, I was just horribly depressed all the time. And after that, then I started really kind of addressing other things that I didn't realize I had, like paranoia. And that I didn't realize I had in large amounts. And that all was sort of like that kind of mindset of living inside my head, and that's what I call self-centered. It's not, I wasn't snobby or like, full of myself. I was just always in my head. And I think my program has been coming out of that, and then like really understanding that besides being in a 12-step program, that I needed a lot more medical help at the beginning, which I did not get. And I was resistant to quite a bit when I came in. Yeah, my sponsor tried to get me into therapy. It took like 3 years before I even saw a therapist. And that was based upon a lot of my religious upbringing, and how, therapy and stuff like that was looked down upon. And, because I was really, fundamental Christian religion,
Does that have something to do why the idea of a higher power as a deity is kind of, can I say, not helpful for you?
It possibly could be. But I really feel like from my experience with like science and understanding and hearing things that my higher power or my God would be like the protons of the sun that feed life on this planet, and that we are all protons. We are made up of I'm made up of the same thing as this microphone in front of me. It's just put together differently.
Yeah.
And like how, like when I pass away, like I like to think that my protons are going to get absorbed by the earth, and then it grows into a plant, and then it gets eaten by an animal, and then I'm reincarnated as like a calf. I don't know. And it just, that's the kind of like the way that I think of it.
It's the circle of life.
Circle of life, but scientifically.
Yeah. I ask because, for a lot of people, especially a lot of queer people in recovery, the idea of God with a capital G is, it's a hard hurdle to get over. Yeah. Right. And that sometimes keeps people out of the rooms for a long time. Right. Or it leaves a really bad taste in their mouth, or, they can't connect to the program because of it. Right. And so that's why I was kind of curious as to how you came to that understanding of like, oh, when I say higher power or God, this is what it means to me.
Right. Well, it's not about God, it's about spirituality, which is just believing that there is something greater than myself. And that is what I do now, is I really believe that my higher power really has a lot to do with the experience, the good experience of really good people. And like recently I've been doing a lot more Buddhism, and, I take it very slow. I do not need to rush into anything. It is not the way to do it anymore. I am slowly letting it come into my life with a couple of meetings a week in meditation, and experiencing what is happening. And the meditation was also missing through the whole time. Okay. Right.
Yeah. I once heard someone describe God as an acronym for the good others do. And I was like, oh, I like that one. I can latch onto that one. But let's talk about meditation. Or, you mentioned earlier that like you needed to get deeper, right, into what was really going on with you. Yeah. And get out of your own head a little bit, right? And so that getting deeper, I imagine therapy was part of it, right? But what were the ways that you went about doing that?
Well, I want to back up a little bit and say when I had the unlovable epiphany in my life, that I also had a connection to understanding that a lot of the feelings that I was still carrying around in my day-to-day life were feelings that were really from my childhood. And that's where I started making a connection of feelings and thoughts. Like we have thoughts and feelings, but our thoughts and our feelings are connected. Okay. There's a pathway between the two. And, when I started meditating, I started actually feeling like I was really beginning to access my subconscious mind. Okay. And that, because that's where the unlovability resides. That's where the thought of I am unlovable, which also I believe I don't love myself, right? Yeah. And that's where, like that subconscious is where so many things lie. There's also subconscious resentments. Okay. Like one of the things that I discovered in therapy is this really, really long, deep resentment, and how I harbored, it's towards a group of people. I don't say who it is because I don't feel it's, helpful, but it was towards a group of people, and how I've always viewed that group of people. And how, in my experience now in life is that I have met people of that group that I love and that love me. And that has been a real, I have to attribute that to meditation, because if I didn't quiet myself and I wasn't ready to really reflect, on on like understanding, like why do I have these feelings come up, and where do they really come from? And I know that, like I healed from depression. I healed from paranoia. I healed from so many things, and like, okay, I'm rewiring, I'm doing all that work. Mm-hmm. It all goes back to trauma. And now in my program, all I want to do is get to the core of everybody's trauma. What is your trauma? Because let's start there. That's where I needed to start. 30 years ago in New York City, trauma was not what we talked about in therapy. We did not. Maybe a little bit, but people weren't even diagnosed with PTSD because that was really for people from the military. Mm-hmm. And it was only through like studies, a huge study that really was completed in 2009, that trauma is caused by so many things. Mm-hmm. As little as parents getting a divorce, a young child is traumatized by it.
Yeah. And so that resentment that you talked about, that you held on to, because I can speak for myself. Like, resentment is the number one thing that starts triggering a craving for me, and for a lot of people, going through a fourth and a fifth step, right? And listening it out and talking it out with your sponsor and what have you, like, okay, I did it, but that doesn't mean that that's gone away. Right. That work that you're talking about going deeper and figuring out, like, where does this resentment come from? What is it rooted in? How do I unpack it? Mm-hmm. Was that something that you did solely through meditation, or did you seek out additional help for that? Like, how were you able to unpack that? Because it sounds like you held on to it for a really long time.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't aware of it for a long time. Mm. And I see that, like it really, I think it has been my experience. I can't really speak for everybody, and sure. I won't, but for my experience is that over time I started realizing that there is something deeper about this stuff that I know. I know my trauma. I know the trauma experience. I know the experiences because I lived it, right? Mm-hmm. Some of it I don't remember, but most of my trauma I remember. And so I remember the experience, so I know the trauma is there. Mm-hmm. But how did the trauma make me feel long-term? And how did the trauma actually incorporate into my life? How was I dealing with it as far as feelings? Really? And I was dealing with it with exterior things, and like, I have had that whole like hug the inner child moment. Like that day, that night that I felt unlovable, I went home. Nobody told me to go into my head and find that little Christopher and give him a hug and say, it's not your fault. Mm-hmm. This is not your fault. None of this was your fault. You are loved, and you need to you can let it go now because I'm here. Big Chris is here. Adult Chris is here.
Yeah. What was that moment around year 23, 25, or series of moments that led to the realization for you of like, oh, maybe there's more here that I have to really address?
I was really triggered because my what's the word for it? It's slipping my mind. My perpetrator contacted me and sent me a message, and all of these memories surfaced about trauma, about the things that I went through. And like, I've always known it, but I didn't remember it. And I started having sense memories where I was tasting and I was smelling and I was hearing, like the actual, like, of that time, those sense memories came back to me. And I luckily was connected to a brilliant psychiatrist in New York, Dr. Murray Shane. And he's the founder of a group, of a website and an organization that helps men through sexual trauma. And really, it was through him and his experience and his helping me that I really was able to like start getting down to, you know, really like what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did your recovery practice change kind of overall after that?
I really knew that I wanted to like make sure that those feelings stayed in the past because I really was not living the good life that I had built in sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal was to start making that feeling of rage and that feeling of abandonment, that feeling of, you know, of that level of hurt. And also I had to make a decision to start loving because I was shut down.
Yeah. So then what does recovery look like for you today, and how do you keep moving forward?
My recovery today is really other people and younger people in the program. And younger, I don't mean by age. I mean younger as far as sober time.
Yeah.
And
how so?
Well, you know, people come in a certain way, and over time they change.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't like me, I don't care. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still going to do what I want to do to try to keep helping. Because I know I've seen it with my own eyes how if people just stay sober, they start healing. Even like this whole dry drunk theory and everything, just staying sober is actually still on the path of getting better.
Yeah. Even biologically, just staying sober, you know,
yes.
the neuroplasticity of your brain starts to heal itself. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So then how does that affect your practice?
Well, my practice has to be, I have to be very aware that I know my character defects. I know my shortcomings. I know triggers today. Mm-hmm. And that my practice is really about making sure that those old tapes don't replay. Mm-hmm. And they do. And the other thing is aging is not, it's not for the weak. It's really not, especially gay men. As a gay man, it is not, like learning to accept that I am getting older and realize that that is a necessary loss in life to lose my looks, to lose, whatever, my youthful viability, all of that stuff.
My hair,
whatever, like that is like accepting that. Even, acceptance doesn't mean that I have to like it. It just means I have to deal with reality.
Yeah.
And, that I get to be calmer. I get to enjoy people differently now than I've ever, enjoyed them.
Yeah. So I guess I want to get into the details of it. Like, how do you keep those tapes in the past? How do you find that acceptance, right? I'm thinking, there may be some people that do have double-digit sobriety behind them and, may feel plateaued, right? Or still discontent,
It all comes back around to my higher power, and that is I cannot be alone, and I need to be around the people that are healthy for me. Mm-hmm. Because 3 days by myself, completely by myself, and I'm back into being crazy. Yeah, I really need, people are mirrors for me. And I really need, even though like my behavior may not be crazy or bad, but somebody else's behavior is a little undeveloped. It's a reminder to me that I have been there and I can still be there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Being around, going to meetings, meeting makers make it. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, yeah, you know what? If you don't go to meetings, if you're not around sober people, your kind of sober people, it's not going to be good. Mm-hmm.
Were you okay during the pandemic? I feel so worried for you. You were in New York at the time.
During the pandemic, I moved from New York to Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Oh.
And I was very excited about the chance to be able to relocate because I've always wanted to do it. And I had Zoom, and I made a lot of Zoom meetings. And I had a core group of people in Baton Rouge, and we got together on a regular basis. And so, because Baton Rouge was different from New York, down here in the South, it was,
to say the least.
Things started opening up a lot earlier in Louisiana than it did in New York City. Yeah. I mean, it's shocking to see the difference in it. But also, I was like, I was okay.
Okay.
I was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned 3 days, and I was like, well, that was a number of months.
Yeah. No, I was on Zoom, and I also worked. I had the ability to work all the way through it. So I didn't actually have a lot of free time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was with people, but I was connected electronically mostly.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier that, meditation has come into part of your practice in a couple of meetings, like what, because we've talked about 12 steps and now meditation. How do you practice a particular program on the Buddhist side? And
I do.
How do you marry the two, right?
Well, I go to Dharma recovery and I go to a Zen meeting that is Zen in the 12 steps. And there's 9 essays that were written by a monk from the San Francisco Zen Center in early 2000s. I think 2004 is when they wrote it. The monk is not known. It's I'm sure there's people who do know who it was, but he or she wanted to remain anonymous. And those 9 essays are incredibly powerful in my life. Because it's actually letting me access the wisdom of the steps deeper. Because of my resistance to religion and the religiosity of 12-step programs, especially AA, because AA can be the most religious of all the
stern on it.
It's very stern. Yeah. They're orthodox. They're orthodox, it's really been able to guide me into understanding like how important it is that, there are many pathways to the same source. And this pathway of Buddhism and the 12 steps is right for me. It's not right for everybody, and I can share that with the people that I'm helping is like, let's find your pathway to getting to this place of putting all of these bad feelings and these bad thoughts that we all go through when we come in the past. Just being sober today, we can be happy about that.
Yeah.
That can make us happy.
Yeah. Being okay with just being okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you read the book Breathing Underwater?
I have heard it, but I haven't read it.
Okay.
I'm not a great reader.
Oh, no.
I'm not the greatest reader.
But you read 9 essays.
Those are, because I go with, I'm like kind of forced to do it.
Yeah.
But on my own, I have those 9 essays. Have I sat down and read them all the way through from front to back at home? No.
We did talk about your emotional support pile of unread books.
Yes.
They just make me feel good knowing that they're there.
Yeah, I have 2 more that just got added to the pile.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I may add this one to your pile. But no, it's a really great book by a priest, Richard, the name escapes me. But he did something similar in where, he did something similar as those 9 essays, but through the teachings of Christ, right? And not Christ, our Lord and Savior, but, like Jesus, the person, and, what Christianity teaches you to be as a person, right? And how that relates to the 12 steps, and I know for me, it helped just kind of, because I'm a recovering Catholic. And so just it helped kind of ease the tension there. And, I think I've always personally felt like, okay, Jesus the person, love it,
Right.
Jesus the entity and the people around what that entity is, not always great.
Yeah, no, I've always said that. Like from my Bible teachings, Jesus was always my favorite character, and that I really I really do admire that person because he does seem almost perfect, and Christ consciousness is like, something that people talk about. And I think it's the same consciousness as Buddhist consciousness.
Yeah. Well, my mother has this book that is like, here's what Jesus said and here's what the Buddha said.
Yeah.
And how they mirror each other.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Oh, that's a great book.
It's a whole thing. And then I don't know if you've ever heard of the Jefferson Bible.
No.
Thomas Jefferson took the Gospels and essentially removed
that's right. I have heard
anything that talked about Jesus as the Son of God and just told the story of Jesus the person. And that's known as the Jefferson Bible.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson was staunchly agnostic, if not atheist.
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, he was.
Let's think like,
there was a resistance to a lot of religion at the founding of America.
Oh, yeah.
In the beginning.
Yeah.
The way that they wrote, the Constitution and the whole separation of church and state, they did that for a specific reason. We forget that.
I'm wondering if that same resistance might have been there at the founding of AA or how that kind of incorporated itself in there, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have found a way to kind of carve the path that not just works for you, but that finds, dare I say, the balance of multiple different programs and multiple forms of healing, right? Because you also talked about therapy, medication, just being in community, right? And all of the different things that allow you to move so gracefully through this world these days.
I suppose the next thing on my life is to really understand this whole thing about ego.
We're all on that journey.
It's really a difficult one for me, but I look forward to how that unfolds. And it really is, the next chapter in my spiritual life is like letting go of things. When I moved from New York, I actually felt my ego and the thoughts of things of like, I was so tied to New York. New York was such a part of who I am, and I defined myself in so many ways by living and have experienced New York City. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I am happy that I have moved on, and it's important to see that there is just so much more learning out there,
And I think that's really humbling to hear from someone with so much sobriety, because sometimes early in sobriety, it's like, I got this, nothing more to learn.
Nope.
Plenty more. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and the path that you've been on. Are you ready to get into some rapid fire?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I would too if I could just open the right page. I was not prepared. Oh, we're working on it. There it is. Okay, great. Fill in the blank. Recovery has given me
honesty.
What's one word you'd use to describe your recovery journey?
Fun.
What's a daily habit or ritual that keeps you grounded?
Meetings.
If you find yourself struggling or triggered, what's the first thing you do?
Call my sponsor.
This or that, morning routine or night routine?
Morning.
Meditation or movement?
Meditation.
Talking it out or writing it down?
Talking it out.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Name one book, song, or movie that's been meaningful to your recovery.
Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth.
A piece of advice you return to when things get tough.
Wow, I have so many going through my head. This too shall pass.
A phrase or mantra you carry with you.
A phrase or mantra. I'm sure I have one, but I can't think of one.
Any of the other ones you were thinking when a piece of advice that you want to share?
Not for nothing. Don't forget to have a good time.
Okay. We are not a glum lot. And if someone hears your story today and takes one thing away from it, what do you hope it is?
Repeat that.
If somebody hears your story today and takes one thing away from it, what do you hope it is?
Find love.
Have you found it?
I'm looking for it.
Constantly.
I have love. I love people.
Yeah.
I love people. Yeah. I love more than I've ever loved.
Well, you are loved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. That's it for this episode of The Speaker Meeting, breaking the silence one story at a time. A huge thank you to our guests today for sharing their journey with us. Recovery isn't easy, but conversations like this remind us that we're not alone and that change is possible. If you're struggling, know that there is help and there is hope. You don't have to do this alone. For immediate support, you can reach out to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. It's free, confidential, and available 24/7. And if you'd like to share your own story, I'd love to hear from you. You can submit your information at geminisproductions.com/thespeakermeeting. And if this conversation meant something to you, help us spread the word. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. The more we talk about recovery, the more we remind people that they are not alone. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, recovery is real.